All right. Well, let's talk about the golf course. It's gotten some work done over the course of the past couple of years. Troy, if you could share my screen, that'd be splendid. There we go. My website, rickrungood.com, course key stats model. And Sia, Muirfield Village it's Jack's place. It's his crown jewel. He tries to make this. He designed it basically with Augusta National in mind. He wants it to be a very difficult test. It had gotten away from that in recent years. And then you remember, as the 2020 version of this tournament was ending, they were literally ripping up greens and getting work done. So they did a lot of restorations and renovations to this golf course, and we played 2 years under those new conditions. And as Jack wanted, yes, the course has gotten more difficult and kind of gotten it back to where he wants the winning score to be.
That's right. And it's really interesting because when it comes to difficulty, there's a lot of issues, right? That you're going to have like right away off the tee with water and just the rough being penal. And, you're going to have bunkers, as you approach. And I'm just curious because I see in the model, Rick, we have driving accuracy percentage at a pretty low mark, at least relative to like just the, strokes gained off the tee, which I understand one is part and parcel of the other. But I'm curious where you're going to go here, because I'll tell you what, when we look at this model and I see strokes gained tee to green, I've already looked at the weighted tee to green stuff on Rick Run Good, and I'm ready for that. Approaching the green, I see we've got 150 to 175, but as you look down, there's long approaches are very relevant at this tournament. It's the part that I can't get right, that I haven't figured out yet, is, am I just going off the tee? Am I going total driving? Do I have a lean towards driving accuracy because of that penal rough? I'm just curious where you stand on that one.
Yeah, so especially since the renovation, what you basically have are wide enough fairways, right? These things, they're not narrow fairways, but the penalty for missing the fairway is pretty steep. So it's not like you necessarily need guys who can hit it down a 10-yard corridor or a 20-yard corridor, but you need guys to keep it like in play, which almost leads me to like good drive percentage, right? It's kind of a different way to look at it. So there's going to be a lot of different ways to get it done. I think the penalty out of the rough is pretty significant, Sia. So I would lean accurate drivers, the longer the better, but I don't think this is necessarily an opportunity to bomb and gouge, because 4 inches of rough and it's still a long golf course and you have to be very precise on the second shot. I would actually likely give up a couple of yards to be in the fairway this week, which is not the normal stance that I would take.
Yeah, and frankly, when you look at the leaderboards, let's just say over the last few years, you've got a mix of everything. You've got the accurate guys, and then you got some of the guys that sprayed a little bit. They're not super accurate off the tee, but they've made up for it in different ways. So I think it's really interesting. I mean, one thing I looked at, again, I'm not trying to promote RRG here, Rick, but it's something. I was texting you last night. I was like, I'm so mad that you already updated the site with the Charles Schwab stuff, because that means I can't go to sleep yet. But the long story short there is one thing I looked at was driving accuracy, but then also not just greens in regulation, but distance. But I didn't really know where the cutoff was. So I made my own cutoff. But I'm looking for guys who can get it out there at least a little bit, that aren't super short, but also have the accuracy built in.
Yeah, we'll talk about him, but like Corey Connors, I think is a pretty good model, right? Like he's going to just be pounding fairways, and he's not short, right, by any stretch of the imagination. So like I think he's a pretty good model. Obviously, if Jon Rahm is going to hit every single fairway, he's going to be super dangerous, and it's why he's been dangerous around this place. But not everybody is Jon Rahm, which we'll talk about here in just a second. I will show you the scorecard while I have it handy. So the work that was done lengthened this place out, specifically on the par fives. The fives started to turn into a little bit of a rollover where these guys were taking advantage of it. They're now playing much more difficult. So it's 75-71 on the scorecard with a par 72, 2 5s on the front, 2 5s on the back. And you see the par threes, both of them on the front, over 200 yards. The par threes on the back are 180 and 220. So this is, listen, it's not a short golf course. See, like, and that's not just with driver in hand. It's going to be a lot of shots where you were kind of mentioning it, being able to hit from 150 to 200 yards, being able to hit it from 175 to 200, things like that, which it's just not a bomb and gouge wedge fest like we get a lot on the PGA Tour.
Yeah, that's right. It's definitely so. If you want to look at the buckets, that's something you definitely want to look at. I have this year more than last year kind of stayed away from the buckets, but I kind of know who the long iron players are anyway. So I definitely, if you're breaking ties, or maybe I should put a little bit more emphasis on it. Certainly, wedge play versus 175 to 225. That there's a chasm there. You're going to want to focus between those two, for example, on the longer hitters there.
As we transition this conversation to the cheat sheet, I will remind everyone who has funneled in here in the first couple of minutes that the fan vote for the one and done, that link is now live. The link is in the description. Get your vote in. The fans hit Brooks, and you hit Brooks, I believe, Sia, at the PGA Championship, and it is gotten tighter. I believe the fans have surpassed me, so they're very much in the mix.
Yeah, and we got a lot of tournaments to go, and we got a designated event this week. I mean, what is it, 3.6 million to the winner? I mean, if you pick the winner this week, you are, unless you're Mark Immelman, you are, because he's in the lead, right? You are really, really catching up to the leader.